Organic. It's a term that's become commonplace these days, from supermarkets to farmers markets. It's everywhere. But how did we get here? Kathy Calfo is the executive director of California Certified Organic Farmers, the agency that certifies organic produce grown in the state. And she says the organic story has its roots in Santa Cruz.
CCOF was actually founded around a kitchen table in Live Oak in 1973. Someone named Barney Brickmont, who passed away a few years ago. He was a local educator and activist. He grew lettuce greens in his backyard for the actress Carol Channing. And he was also, unbeknownst to most people, a strong advocate for organic farming. And he worked with people all over California and some from outside of California, including folks from the Rodale Institute, organizing farmers to invent certification as we know it today, organic certification. It was actually Sam Farr here in Santa Cruz who, when he was in the state legislature, introduced the California Organic Program and put the first mechanism in place that could develop standards. But he was then elected to Congress shortly after that, and he and some other congressmen worked to pass the National Organic Program in the early 1990s. So all of this time, from 1973 to the early 90s, these volunteer networks were still in place and certifying organic products, but there really just wasn't much of a market. It was looked at as kind of fringy, alternative. There were a few co-ops, grocery stores, but not the kind of big market that you see today for organic products.
David Posner was one of the first people in California to supply those early grocery stores and co-ops with organic produce, a word less clearly defined in those early days.
I left LA and home at a very early age, hitchhiked up to Big Sur, ended up at this free school in the Santa Cruz Mountains called Pacific High School, and one of the most important things they told us was not to go to any classes unless you really, really wanted to. So my favorite class turned out to be the organic gardening class, and we learned organic gardening through the Rodale method. We studied with the Encyclopedia of Organic Gardening, and we had a couple of we had one large garden and then a smaller one that I ended up developing while I was a student. And coincidentally, when I graduated, my teacher left and I got the job as the organic gardening teacher. School needed money, so I came up with the idea of planting really big gardens and taking the produce down to Santa Cruz to sell it. And that's how I first started selling organic produce in Santa Cruz in 72 or 73. I was definitely one of the very first people, if not the first person, to actually have a route delivering to these natural food stores and calling the produce organic produce.
After 40 years of hard work and networking, David now heads up Santa Cruz-based Awesome Organics, one of the largest suppliers of organic produce from the Southern Hemisphere.
It all started from an idea that was, from the heart, and we're still bringing that in these days at a totally different level.
A different level indeed, with 82% of Americans now saying they've purchased some organic food, a trend that those in the organic industry see as a validation.
Since 2001, when the Organic Foods Production Act went into place, you've seen the organic markets skyrocket. The thoughts of Barney Brickmont and those early people were really right. You needed a framework so that consumers could have confidence in that label, and we see now today they do. It's in all of the markets you go to. Look at all the chefs. Every time you go into a restaurant now, you hear about the chefs really trying to pick the best organic products they can find, and they do that because the taste is so amazing.
It's very, very rewarding to see that, what I saw so many years ago about organic being, basically the way that it would be sustainable to produce food long term, and to not, the reasons not to use the chemicals. It's all turned out to be true in many, many people's minds, and it's gathered huge amount of support, and also from people, from consumers. So it's just super rewarding that it's gotten so much traction and there's so much support behind it.